don't care what Houston did yesterday. They're going to go get their Letterman jackets again. The Indianapolis Colts are 2-6 against the Titans since Pat McAfee came up here and did his wrestling announcement. And the Jacksonville Jaguars, they haven't had back-to-back winning seasons since I was a senior in high school.
What's up, Titans fans, and welcome to another edition of Titans Global Podcast. I'm your host, Maximus Titan Fan. I am back, thank you. And with me, as always, my solid co-host. Got to give him props for last week. Doing it on your own is always hard, brother, and you held it down really well for me. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to have you back, man. Hey, we got through it. Thanks to all you guys who stuck with me. And make sure, as always, make sure you like, make sure you share, and make sure you comment. This show is for you guys. We love interacting with you. So make sure you hit that comment section, and we look forward to talking with you.
Absolutely, man. And if you are watching us, please go check out our YouTube page. If you haven't yet, like and subscribe to our channel. That would be great. That is the best way to help us here at Titans Global Podcast. We don't ask for money or anything like that. Just slam the like button, slam the subscribe button. And you get to see us every week, twice a week.
Absolutely.
So, I said it's a preview show of the Seahawks versus the Titans, but really moreover, it's what are we doing with the rest of our season, and what do we have to play for, and who to really watch. Yep. And then we'll talk a little bit about the Seahawks too.
Yep. Sounds good.
So, first question, and big question on everybody's mind. Is Will Levis going to play? And if he's not, why Ryan Tannehill?
Yeah, all signs point. I mean, he's listed as questionable right now. All signs point to me that he is not going to go, and I don't think he should. I mean, me personally, I said it last week. I don't think he's necessarily got anything left to prove this year.
No.
He's definitely your starter going forward into the 2024 campaign. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, Tannehill, we're going to roll him out there, and it feels like at least we're going to roll him out there. And me personally, I just think that going forward, if you think Malik Willis can be a backup on this team, I think now is the time to figure that out. I don't think it does the Titans any favors. Now it does Ryan Tannehill some favors, but I don't think it does the Titans any favors to roll Tannehill out there, especially with this offensive line, when you know he doesn't have the same mobility that Malik Willis has, and you've kind of seen what he can do. So I get that he's auditioning for his future, but for me, it just doesn't help the Titans whatsoever to bring him out there as your starter this week.
No, man. And look, to be honest, I'm not sure if Willis or Tannehill, no, it's not Tannehill, but I'm not sure if either one will be with us next year.
Yeah.
But the point is, I see this as Vrabel doing what he always does, which is starting to really get under my skin, but he's doing his buddy a favor.
Yep.
And his buddy being Ryan Tannehill, he's saying, hey, man, you were being nice about losing your starting job. You were so professional, and I'm going to give you the last 3 games to maybe go out there and show somebody you still got it so you can maybe get a job next year.
Yep.
Which is kind of crappy, especially if you're Malik Willis, because he's just trying to see, or show everybody that he can be a decent backup. Because right now that's what he is. He's a backup developmental player, and if you get him on a team with a quarterback whisperer like I don't know, the 49ers maybe, or the Rams, are a good option. There's a lot of options out there that I think Malik would fit decently with. I mean, even the Ravens,
Yeah.
they love to take our old players.
Yep.
Or Chicago, he might actually be a starter up there.
Yep.
But my point is you're not doing the young man any favors. And I'm not sure he's going to be here next year. Why would we keep him as our backup? He's nothing like Will Levis. You'd have to completely change your entire offensive scheme if you put him in the game. So I just don't see it. And I don't understand it. And I think that it's kind of a slight to Malik Willis and not really going to do anything for Ryan Tannehill, I don't think either. Because like you said, our line is extremely porous. And our quarterback, I mean, Will Levis has been sacked, 49 times or 48 times? So good luck, Tanny. I see a lot of the crumples that we saw earlier in the season. I see a lot of, I don't know. Looks like Michael Newsom here disagrees with me, and he's one of our constant follower, so I'll give him the props of at least putting it up there and saying he's earned a proper send off.
Here's the one thing I'll say, and going to that comment, here's kind of the devil's advocate of that side of things.
Mm-hmm.
This could be a potential send off to Tannehill and Derrick Henry. This may be the last 3 games that we see these two guys in the same jersey.
Yep.
So at least in a Titans jersey. And I get that there's a level of, what Tannehill has done here. And he has kind of took this team to the next level in some phases, in some years. To me, it just feels like it's almost like a breakup to a point where, okay, we're trying to help you, but there's really nothing you can give us. And I kind of agree with you. I feel like this is Vrabel's way of making up for, taking that starting job away from Tannehill. That's kind of what it feels like. And to go back to Willis, I never really thought Willis was going to be a good fit for this team because there was a little bit of hope that, okay, if we can get this guy going and he's agile and he's athletic, and then you've got Derrick Henry in the backfield with him, it's kind of that two-headed monster.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the reason people thought that Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, when all the talk was Derrick Henry going to the Ravens, I just don't feel like Malik is there yet. And again, this coaching staff just hasn't shown me that they can develop young quarterbacks properly. I feel like a lot of what Will Levis has done is more credit to Will Levis than it is the development of this coaching staff.
Absolutely.
So I agree. I think Malik should get a chance to get some good film out there to show these other teams, what he's capable of. And if it were me and I was Mike Vrabel or I was calling the shots, again, I would roll Willis out there just to see what he can do. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I feel the same way, man. I mean, it's a young man's game, and Tannehill's old. No offense to him, but if he gets another gig next year, it's probably going to be in a backup situation anyway. So, why not just put the kid out there?
Yeah,
that's just how I feel about it. But that's going to transition us into a really, really nice question for a lot of fans out there, and there is a heated debate over this. But do you re-sign Derrick Henry? Now, I'm going to kind of jump the gun here and go ahead and answer just a little bit. But the only way I would re-sign Derrick Henry is if he was willing to take a much bigger pay cut than he did last year. And he would have to know that his only role on the team, other than mentoring other young running backs, is short yardage situations and red zone. That's it. That's the only way. And I'm talking about, when I say low money, I'm talking about like $2.5 million. So I don't think there's any way. I mean, he doesn't have an ice cube's chance in hell of being re-signed, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But because I think there are going to be other teams out there like the Ravens or somebody like that. It's going to offer him $8 million a year, and he's going to jump on it.
Yeah, and here's my thought. It is not Derrick Henry's fault that this offensive line is this bad. It's not his fault.
Nope.
But with that being said, because this offensive line is this bad, he is more of a limitation to this team right now than he is a help. Because for whatever reason, they are just determined to keep running it with Derrick Henry in this offense. Um, and to your point, right now, Derrick Henry, I believe he's the ninth highest paid running back in the league.
Yeah.
For the Titans to keep him, that has to drop to like the 35th, 36th highest paid running back in this league. And I don't see that happening. And
No.
with the Titans, with seeing what you've got in Tajay Spears, you can bring in a backup running back for pretty cheap. And I just don't know that. I mean, look back to when we brought in Deontay Foreman. Deontay Foreman came in, and credit to him, he did a lot of what Derrick Henry did. So you can go get a big, strong, back that can drive forward and be that red zone threat and be that short yardage threat and not be the ninth highest paid running back in the league. So to me, it just doesn't make sense for Derrick Henry or for the Titans to continue this relationship. I hate it, and I love him, and I appreciate everything he's done for this organization, but it feels like now's the time to kind of move on for me.
Yeah, man. I mean, you put it really eloquently. But really it just comes down to, for me, it comes down to if you watch this season, it's pretty clear why Tajay Spears should get more carries.
Yep.
And it's because the defenses are more honest against him because he can get outside the numbers a lot faster and he can make jump cuts a lot faster than Derrick Henry can.
Yeah.
People have figured out if you can stop Derrick Henry's feet from moving, he doesn't produce yardage well. And I hate that because, our offensive line is so crappy that he can't get his feet moving. His acceleration point is much slower than Tajay Spears.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry if that makes people angry, but that's the truth. And that's why Tajay should be getting the majority of the carries. I mean, look, if and here's a really good question for you. Do you think that Derrick Henry's heavy workload is more Tim Kelly's offense, or do you think it's more Mike Vrabel pushing his agenda of, run the ball?
At this point, I'm not sure. I don't know that Tim Kelly has much of a say in this offense as we think he does.
Exactly.
I don't. I mean, and I hate to. If you look, and I know we talked, I think it was a couple weeks ago about the gadget plays, how Tim Kelly is really, really good at these gadget plays. Well, gadget plays are created by your coordinator. I mean, he's writing these plays up. The plays that he writes up seem to be good plays. I mean, he has success. But then throughout the course of a game, the second and third quarter, when you're not running gadget plays, when you're running your identity, your offense, I just don't see the same, I don't want to say intensity. I don't see the same risk taking there. I just feel like everything they play is safe. And we've seen too many times this year they get to the second half and they're not playing to win. They're just playing not to lose. And I don't know how much of that is Tim Kelly, but I'm starting to feel like the majority of that is Mike Vrabel. I feel like it's kind of his way right now.
Yeah, to be honest, I was blaming Kelly for some of that questionable play calling. But after Mike Vrabel's comment after the game of being successful with the run in the game and all that, I mean, it just showed what I know to be true already. We got a really stubborn coach.
Yep.
But Michael Newsom makes a great point here. Don't think Derrick Henry will take a pay cut because he was talking about how running backs need to be paid higher, and that would make him look like a hypocrite.
Yeah,
very good point.
Yeah, absolutely. And you saw when, well, the name Jonathan Taylor. You saw when Jonathan
Yep.
Taylor on the Colts, when he kind of did his holdout thing, Derrick Henry was in full support of that. I mean, I think he was one of the main running backs who held that running backs only meeting to kind of try to force the league to look into the compensation more. But I mean, he's a big proponent of running backs should be paid. So I don't see him taking that pay cut. I don't see him wanting to take that pay cut. And I do feel like there will be stronger offers than the Titans are willing to make come this offseason. I mean,
I mean, there's going to be at least 3 teams that offer him a better deal. It's going to be the Bills, crap, I said it earlier, the Ravens, and possibly the Eagles.
Yep.
Those are another one that I think that, if he is going to take a pay cut to go be with a team, the Eagles would be my number one choice. Yeah.
Yep.
Because AK1 is already there, and of course, I don't know. He looks like he's having a rocky relationship with them now, too. But, I don't want to bring him into the conversation.
Yeah. Well, so to transition, we're talking about running backs. To transition into eventual wide receiver talk, I got a fun stat for you. Did you know that this year, Derrick Henry has more catches, not more yards, but he has more catches than Treylon Burks and Kyle Phillips combined? He's got 27 catches, and those 2 receivers who we expected to be breakout players this year, who I mean, at least I did. I expected them to be breakout players this year. They have 25 combined. So, I mean, that just goes to show you that, yes, there is an offensive mind to run the football, but when you have no weapons on the field, do you have another choice at that point? I mean, I feel like we're playing with the limitations of what we've got, which is crazy because 2 years ago we were talking about injuries and how nobody could be on the field. This year it seemed like we were pretty healthy all year.
Yeah,
but you still couldn't get
up
until this week, but you still couldn't get your best players, your best receivers on the field all year long. That to me is just insane.
Yeah, and the big question mark is what happened with Kyle Phillips for those 3 weeks that we wondered, and then all of a sudden he came up with a hamstring injury.
Yeah.
I find that very interesting, especially with the NFL's issue with injuries going on right now. But I'm not trying to throw him under the bus or anything like that. Hope that's not what's going on. But anyway.
But to your point, this Titans team has put us in a position where we have to question everything. When you've got players that are getting cut from the team and then going on Twitter and talking about, I'm glad they cut me, it was my wishes, or just straight out, so glad to be off this team, Jaleel Johnson, it puts you in this position as a fan where you've got to question every move, where you've got to question every injury. There's just it's got to a point where I don't know what state that locker room is in.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, it makes me wonder about some of these guys that are out or listed as out or listed with illnesses and injuries. And I mean, I wish everybody the best, but because of those facts, you've got to put that into question.
And one more question that kind of transitions into, but then I'll quit with the hypotheticals until at least the end of the season as far as this comes into play. But a lot of people have talked about Coach Vrabel sitting on a hot seat, and when they first started talking about it, probably 8 weeks ago, I was like, no, he's done so much good for the Titans teams. We've always been in playoff contention. He's got a winning record every season except for one. I mean, like there's a plethora of reasons why to keep Mike Vrabel. But when you look at the flip side of the coin, there are also a plethora of reasons why you should get rid of Mike Vrabel.
Yep.
His stubbornness has come to a point of almost aggravation as a fan that you continue to roll out these offensive coordinators that are your buddies or your high school friends. Like I belong to a Titans chat that's a private chat that nobody is privy to. Sorry, guys. But the point is that we were talking about things that you just don't talk about in the public arena. But one of those things was, why why does he continue to hire his best friends? Do
Yep.
you know our offensive line coach never coached in the NFL before he joined the Titans? He only coached in college and in high school, and he had a losing record.
Yeah.
Now, what kind of sense does that make for somebody to go from high school and college? And I'm not talking about like, big colleges.
Right.
I'm talking about not crappy colleges because they were educated, more like Ivy League type schools, but nobody that's ever in contention for any kind of football.
Yep.
And he had a losing record.
Yep.
So how did he get a job as an NFL coach? I don't get that. Maybe it's because I'm just a fan and I don't know what I'm talking about. But in my experience, winners begat winners.
Yeah.
Begat winners.
You're right.
That's how it works. I mean, look at Dion. He took a nobody team to a lot better heights with doing things that are way unconventional, like getting rid of 70% of his roster and replacing it.
You're right.
So I don't see why that shouldn't be an option for the Titans. So, yeah, I guess I'm saying Mike Vrabel's seat could be warm.
Yeah, and if you asked me 2 to 3 weeks ago, I would say, yes, the seat's warm, but he's got another year. Today, I think he's got half a season. I would not be surprised. It keeps dwindling down. I would not be surprised if they gave him half a season because Amy Adams-Strunk has shown that, hey, she's not scared to make moves midseason. She's not. She's going to do what's best for this football team, and I've got faith in her. But, yeah, I think that's been cut in half from what I thought 2 to 3 weeks ago. You can't – most coaches, the majority of coaches, do not keep jobs in the NFL with this type of record over the last 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
They just don't. And on these losing streaks that he went on, they just don't. So I feel like he's on a very short leash, and it's one of those things where, you've got to prove it early next year. We'll get you the talent, we'll get you the weapons, but I need to see things different quickly. And we'll see how it plays out. But yeah, it's getting a little bit shorter for me on his time here, but we'll see.
Yeah, a lot of the people that are in the Titans organization right now are becoming really short-leashed with me as well.
Yep.
I love Newsom's point here. 0.5 yards before contact.
Yeah.
That is what happens when you hire an unproven offensive line coach.
Yep.
Not saying anything about his assistants or anything like that. I'm just saying that dude obviously shouldn't be hired. And it was brought to my attention in my private Titans chat. That was pretty much it.
I would love to know how much control he has as a line coach. Like, are you there to develop the offensive lineman, or are you there to create blocking schemes? Like, I want to know, because a lot of this comes down to schemes. It's not the runs themselves, it's the scheme. There seems to be no cohesion on that line. So I would love to know who's coming up with the schemes on this, whether it's Tim Kelly, whether it's the offensive line coach. I feel like there should be more people at risk than it seems like there are at this point.
Well, I'll say this. A lot of people argue over who it's, really is. Mike Vrabel, Tim Kelly, the offensive line, Derrick Henry. There's a lot of question marks. But my point is, why haven't we seen bootlegs?
Yeah.
We don't have a pocket. So like conventional wisdom says, if you can't form a decent block, the best thing to do, especially with the athletic center that we have in Aaron Brewer and Peter Skoronski and Dylan Radins, all these guys are highly athletic. So you can move the pocket very easily. That's the kind of stuff I'm wondering about. And is it Tim Kelly's lack of offensive creativity? I don't think so, because we've seen some pretty wild gadget plays that worked 90% of the time. I think, moreover, it's more of an archaic hold. And like you said, there's no cohesion, man. It looks like two minds are battling each other for who has dominance over the offense is what it is. Same thing with defense, too. I mean, half the time they're zone, soft coverage.
Yep.
Half the time they're right up on their man and they're extremely physical, but they lose them in the long run. I mean, it's frustrating as a fan.
Well, yeah, and it goes back to identity. I mean, it just feels like this team has no identity. They don't know what they are on defense. One week they'll stop the run and hold them to 20 yards rushing. One week they'll give up 120. I mean, one week you hold up in pass coverage, the next week you get burnt. And then on offense, one week you throw the ball and have success, and then you come right back the next week and run it for absolutely nothing all game. I mean, it feels like they're just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. And so far, nothing is stuck. I mean, they just can't figure it out. So, hey, maybe we'll see a Christmas miracle this week against the Seahawks, but I don't know, man. I just want to see this team find something going forward. Just, find what you are. And I know Will Levis is probably out for the rest of the year, but you still got Tajay. You still got DeAndre Hopkins. You've still got an offensive line that you're trying to kind of build up and get working together. I just want to see them find something, just a bright spot over these next 3 weeks, and maybe play spoiler in one of these games. But yeah, we got to find that identity at least next year. You gotta find it early.
Yep. So to transition into another player that we have questions about. Unfortunately, Nick Westbrook-Akine's season ended a little early. He's not going to play the last 3 games because he's on IR. But he did make me eat a lot of crow this season. Mm-hmm. And any player that does that catches my attention, if nothing else, because I don't like eating crow. I don't like being wrong, but I was definitely wrong about him. I wasn't wrong that he's slow, or I wasn't wrong that, he doesn't have the quintessential things that you look for in a wide receiver. I was wrong in the fact that the man shows up in clutch situations for us time and time again.
Yep.
And if you look at his numbers, not too awful bad, better than Treylon Burks, way better. So yeah, man, would you not re-sign Nick Westbrook-Akine?
For me, it depends. A lot of it, I think, depends on who your plan is to bring in, whether you're going to go to free agency, whether you're going to go to draft. I will say this. When you've got a team that has been this banged up at the receiver position, when you've had Phillips miss time, when you've had Burks miss time, he has been your constant. I had a stat last week. I think you had to go back to like 2020 to find a game to find a season where he missed a game. Mm-hmm. Of course, up until this year. But saying that, you're out of playoff contention. I don't know that if they were still in playoff contention, if it's not something he would try to play through. But yeah, I mean, he's kind of been your constant when there's not been a lot of receivers you can count on. He shows up, he puts the work in, he gets on the field, and we've seen him make some catches. So for me, it depends. Right now, at this moment, I would say, yeah, re-sign him, bring him back as your 4th, 5th wide receiver, just because he's there, he's available. But if you go into free agency and you get some guys that have a little more higher ceiling than he does, and you find somebody to replace him with that you feel comfortable with, that you feel like can be on the field, then we'll see what happens. But as of today, I'd say, yeah, bring him back.
Yeah, anybody that follows me on Twitter already knows how I feel about it, because I've been blowing it up the last 2 days. But yeah, I say re-sign him. He's a solid number 4 receiver.
Yep.
And I think he's deserved enough. He's done enough. He's earned it. I feel like you give him maybe $5 to $7 million over 2 years.
Yeah.
That's not a crazy number, but I think it's a good enough number that he would stay. Even if somebody offered him a little bit more, I think he would still stay here at the Titans, because the fans love a good story, and an undrafted free agent that turns into a kind of a regular for the Titans, I think, is a good story. And the problem with NWI and why fans don't like him is because the Titans have been constantly trying to use him as a number 2 or number 3 wide receiver, when he's clearly a number 4. And here's my thing, okay? We go into the season, D-Hop's already under contract. Mm-hmm. We got him. Okay, so we go into free agency. Man, we got to be pulling one of the bigger names. We got to be grabbing Higgins or Pittman, one or the other. Yep. And I'm not assuming the Colts are going to let Pittman out of their reach. I'm assuming they're going to try to keep him there. So I'm hoping that we sign Higgins. That's my preferred sign out of the two.
Yep.
And once you sign Higgins, now you got D-Hop, now you got Higgins. I would love to see Kearis Jackson come back from IR next year and play for us. I think he has a lot of potential as a returner, if not a wide receiver also. But I think he had a really good game early in the season as a wide receiver. I think it was even the Saints game. But anyway, you got those three right off the bat. You also have Kyle Phillips returning. And if he can continue what he was doing towards the middle end of the season, whatever you want to call that, then you got 1, 2, 3, and 4, and even 5 right there. You know what I mean? And they're all pretty much proven except for Kearis Jackson, which I think he could last. And another big deal is Colton Dowell going to have a more involved role now that Nick Westbrook-Akine is out, because they are very much the same body type.
So I was going to say a couple points you made there I wanted to touch on that I jotted down here. One, I feel like this is the one area where I'm kind of happy if Ryan Tannehill starts, because I feel like as a passer, he's a little bit more pure than Malik Willis. Mm-hmm. And I really want to see what Colton Dowell can do. I mean, he hasn't had a lot of opportunities to get on the field this year. And I think this is almost his tryout for him, at least. It almost seems like his tryout for NWI's spot. I mean, because they're kind of the same body style. Mm-hmm. They're kind of the same receiver. Obviously, Dowell's younger, maybe a little more athletic. He's definitely faster, and that's something this team needs is speed. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the NWI talk is going to come down to these next 3 games to see how Colton Dowell performs. Another point you made, going back to the receiver group and who you're looking to bring in free agency, I think you've got to go get a returner this offseason. You can't just keep throwing guys back there and watching them drop the ball on punt returns. Your next receiver that you bring in, or DB for that matter, they have to be able to return the ball. You need a guy who can do both. So I feel like, yes, you bring a T. Higgins in, you have to take some pressure off of DeAndre Hopkins, but you've also got to get a guy in, and maybe you draft him, maybe you get him in free agency, but it's time to get a returner for the next 3 to 4 years, because whatever they're doing right now just ain't working.
Yeah, I did forget to mention that I would have drafted a wide receiver in probably the 2nd round.
Yeah.
But carry on, sorry.
No, you're good. I mean, that's it. I just I want to see what Colton Dowell can do, to your point, and you got to get that returner this offseason. That's one of the biggest things for me. This team has just been hurt so many times at that punt return position. So you got to find something there for sure.
And for me, being the devil's advocate on that one, I would say Eric Garrard's pretty good. He only had one kind of gaffe this season. And I would also say that, again, I hope Kearis Jackson comes back from injured reserve and plays for us next year. And he was a pretty good returner. I think he could hold that down. But
yeah, and I like that point. I just don't know with Garrard right now, are you getting enough of him as a good secondary player that you want to keep him on an active 53-man roster? Do you see what I'm saying? Is it because I love it? I love the story. I love the guy. I think he's got a lot of passion. But would you rather have a good receiver, a solid 4th receiver that can return punts, or would you rather have a 2nd string at best, if not 3rd string DB on the roster just to be that return guy? Do you see where I'm going with that?
Oh, absolutely, man. Yeah. Would I rather have somebody on defense returning those punts than offense? Absolutely. Yeah. Because that just makes somebody on offense more injury prone.
That's true.
Yeah. And DBs, especially when you're talking about 2nd or 3rd DBs, are just more expendable. So, yeah, I 100% agree with you on that I would rather have a defensive back running those returns than I would. But I also would love to have a Pac-Man Jones.
That's true. That's true.
So with that being said, I mean, you could also take my wide receiver in the second round, turn him into a cornerback, and get
Yeah.
an amazing punt returner, I guess, or the third round, depending on how they draft the tackles. But look, I pretty much trust Rand Carthon when it comes to drafting. His draft statuses are amazing. I mean, if he drafts like this next year, holy cow, he's going to be like a guru of drafts or something. But
Yeah.
free agency, give and take. I mean, there was some really good signings like Aziz, who I definitely think we should re-sign.
I do too.
Kayvon Wallace, who, again, I definitely think we should re-sign.
Yep.
But there was also some less than great or overhyped pickups like, I don't know, Andre Dillard. Or what was the other guy he brought in for, not Sean Murphy Bunting, because he's actually done a really good job, but I feel like there was one more guy on defense he brought in.
Well, you had the trade for the Eagles you brought in for Kevin Byard.
Oh, yeah, he never played for us, had he?
He took a few snaps, but it was very underwhelming. I mean, Terrell Edmonds.
Edmonds, that's
yeah.
his
I
name,
mean,
yeah.
I thought when they traded, when he was packaged into that trade, you'd see more of him. But credit, I think Kayvon Wallace kind of silenced that a little bit because he came in, played great ball. But yeah, I don't know. The majority of Carthon's picks to me have been great. Free agency and obviously draft picks. I want to see him do it again. I think he's got it. I think he's good at it. I mean, look at where San Francisco is right now. A lot of these guys that are on this San Francisco team who are having a lot of success, Carthon was there for that player personnel when they brought him in. So I think he does know how to build teams, and I'm excited to see what he does. I just want to see him keep doing it. I mean, if you can churn these players out every year and get them the right coach, whether that be Vrabel or not, I just want to see it keep going for sure.
Well, what do we keep saying all year? Consistency.
That's right.
It's not just the players that need to be consistent.
Yeah.
It's the coaches. It's the training staff. The conditioners.
Yeah.
Everybody has to be consistently better. And I love, and I think Mike Vrabel needs to think about this really hard. This comment, a friend of mine once told me when I was peaking out in a sport, he said, don't let good get in the way of great.
Yep.
And that's what you got to think about right now, Mike Vrabel, because you have been good for the Titans.
Yep.
Can you be great?
Yep.
And again, dang it, Newsom, you're making some really good points here.
Yeah,
free agency, Nixon, he's pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll let him get away, though.
Yeah, I don't know. Of course, right now, all the free agency talk, that market's going to be super saturated. You're going to see those numbers dwindle down because a lot of these guys that are listed as free agents, they're not going anywhere. I mean, and that's why it's so hard. Even the draft, it's just so hard to talk about, the off-season signings at this point because things just change every single week. You've got guys that decide they're going back to college. You've got guys that get locked up by the teams they're on. I mean, it's so hard to really talk about it, but best believe in the off-season, we're going to be here for every single bit of it and see what we do from here.
That's what I like to do in the off-season is, stir up crap and try to predict the future, which sometimes I'm right and sometimes I'm way off. But just a little bit of talk about the Seattle Seahawks.
Absolutely.
Our injury report is really bad for this game. I'm going to try to be quick. No Sean Murphy Bunting, Nick Westbrook Akine, Treylon Burks, Kyle Phillips, Kayvon Wallace, Amani Hooker, Jack Gibbons, Aaron Brewer, Luke Gifford, Trayvon Wesco, Danico Autry, and Jeffrey Simmons. They're all out, already ruled out. Mm-hmm. And then Levis probably isn't going to play. I mean, let's be realistic here. Yeah. This is the way I look at that. That's bad news. A lot of our starters are out. But the last three games really should be about the future.
Yep.
And I would like to see what some of these younger guys or different guys. So that's what we're going to see a lot of this game. Different guys in the same situations who've only had about a week or two to prepare as starters, try to come together and gel as a defense and an offense.
Yep.
And people say that coaching really doesn't make a difference on a team. That's stupid. I don't know who thinks that, but a coach can elevate a team. A coach can elevate a position if he's, good at his position. That's just silly talk, man. I mean, of course, better coaches make players better. That's just, come on, man. Otherwise, they wouldn't get the job they have.
Yeah, and to me, I feel like, to that point, I mean, we've seen Vrabel do this before. We've seen him go into games with what feels like half of the team injured and out. I mean, this isn't anything new for the Titans. What is new is, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first year that Vrabel's been here that we've been out of playoff contention this early. Am I right in saying that? Has there been?
We haven't played a game with Mike Vrabel as our head coach. Not one where we weren't in playoff contention.
That's what I thought. So we're seeing, credit to Mike Vrabel or Carthon, whoever's decision this was, but it feels like a lot of those guys that are listed as out, the majority of them probably have a job here next year. It just feels like it trends in that direction. So I feel like they've kind of came together and they agree with you. They've said, look, let's go out these last 3 weeks. Let's see what we got. Let's see who wants to be here, because we may be going into an off season where, I mean, I don't think it's crazy to say 20 guys on the active roster right now before this injury report. 20 guys could be cut from this team. I mean, you're going in with a whole new regime next year. So yeah, I mean, to your point, it feels like this is just a tryout. It's an early preseason to see what some of these guys have in them.
Yeah, I'll say this, man. With the little bit of cap space that we had this year and the crazy maneuvering that Rand Carthon had to do, we had one of the most revamped offenses from the previous year in the NFL.
Yep.
So if he did that with like 15 million or whatever, he might have worked 25 million out of with the KB reduced hit and all that stuff. Still, what's he going to do with 100 million?
Yeah.
I'm excited. Like I said, it could be a couple bust hits and then, we're right back where we are. But I'm at least excited about what the future holds.
Yeah. So
I'm an optimistic fan.
So it's tough, but, we went through the injury report for this one. So with this Seahawks game coming up, who's kind of who's your player to watch? I mean, it's tough in this one because there's going to be so many new faces. If you're not a true Tennessee Titans fan and you watch this game on Sunday, you're going to have to be on your phone Googling who's on the field at any given point, because I feel like this is just going to be not the people you're used to. So who's your people that you're looking for this week?
All right. So people that I think will really make a difference in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Tajay Spears will make a huge difference in the game if he has a big game. I think that now that Ryan Tannehill's been watching Will Levis, he can think to himself, ooh, that's my check down spot. But
I saw it. Yeah.
What are you doing, man? Stop that. Yeah. That's not true. All right. But honestly, on offense, you mentioned it. I want to see Colton Dowell, man. I want to see him make a couple good catches. I'd love to see him moss somebody or go up for a high point catch or something like that. That would be sweet on offense. As far as defense goes, man, there really isn't a whole lot of defense to choose from.
No.
But I would love to see a big game from Roger McCreary.
Okay. I like that.
We haven't seen a big game from him in a couple weeks, and I think with Sean Murphy bunting out, I think he might, he's usually our number one CB when SMB is out. So I think that he'll have a big game.
Yep. No, I agree with that. For me, my offense, if I like Spears to have a big game because I feel like Spears on this team right now as a rookie, which is crazy to think about. As a rookie, when you look at other teams and how they prepare for this Titans team, he's got to be your number 2 offensive threat. Correct? I mean,
Yep,
it's DeAndre Hopkins and then Tajay Spears. So,
absolutely.
I mean, when you're game planning for this team, he's right up there as a rookie. So, I do think he's going to continue to have these big games. I think what it's going to come down to, not to get back to the Derrick Henry talk, but I think what it's going to come down to is this coaching staff going to let Henry just try to eat stats? Or are you going to continue to put Spears out there and get him ready for next year? I hope it's the latter. I really want to see Tajay Spears just have these breakout games over these next 3 weeks. The other guy I'm looking at, if he plays, he's listed as questionable right now, but I know you've talked about him before, is Wiley, rookie tight end. I mean, if he goes, he and Chig are both listed as questionable. Seems like he has a better chance to play maybe than Chig does at this point, and I think they should. Because I think he's got potential to be what everybody wanted Chig to be at this point in his career.
I think those are really good picks, man.
Yep.
Honestly,
We'll
do.
see.
And yeah, talking about the Spears thing, I don't want to harp on Henry. And I had a very unpopular post that I put up about Henry that stat was brought to my attention that it was the first time since 1948 that somebody has had 20 carries and only 10 yards.
Yep.
And a lot of people were like, oh, man, it's the offensive line. It's not a Derrick Henry. And I get that. I understand what you're saying there. But really, it's about, they were on point. And that's just the way defenses are attacking us with Derrick Henry right now.
Yeah, people got to realize it can be both. I mean, there is a reality, believe it or not, there is a reality where bad play calling leads to bad offensive line play, which leads to bad running. I mean, it just is. And I'm still not willing to say that Derrick Henry has lost a step, but it does feel different. It just, every time he gets the ball, it just feels different. It feels like he's standing up more. And I know he's getting hit behind the line, and it leads to a lot of that. But he's not getting to that second level. And yes, it has to do with the offensive line. And yes, it has to do with the play calling. But other teams are looking at Derrick Henry differently than we are as Titans fans, because they're saying, well, if you're that elite of a running back, if you want to be the top paid running back in the NFL, you should be able to hit the hole faster. You should be able to make cuts faster. You should be able to get outside the numbers faster. And we're just not seeing that this year. So I think it's kind of a combination of everything. And that's why I say again, it's nobody's doing anybody any favors at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Titans aren't doing Derrick Henry any favors by putting him out there every week and just putting him in the line of fire play after play after play. And he's not doing the Titans any favors, because here we said at 5-8. I mean, it's just nobody's winning right now. And it's got to be time to just cut ties, in my opinion. But again, I don't want to hark on it, but that is the biggest story going into these offseason is what does Derrick Henry do? What do the Titans do with him? I mean, honestly, that I feel like that's going to be the headline for a while.
Yeah, and I don't think you can give him I don't think you can give him an actual lesser amount of carries without, kind of damaging the franchise's eyes and in his eyes or whatever. You know what I'm trying to say? Yeah. We don't want to make it seem like we're ungrateful.
Absolutely.
Derrick Henry has given us so much. I mean, he was almost single-handedly responsible for us getting to the AFC Championship one year. So, huge props to Derrick Henry. But, as with everything, time gets to you. Bad scheme, bad blocking, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
And like you said, there is a reality where all that stuff exists. And that's how you end up with 10 yards on 20 carries. It's not solely Derrick Henry's fault. It's not solely the line's fault. It's not solely Tim Kelly or Mike Vrabel's fault, whoever you want to blame on that. It's not their fault. It's just a combination of everything.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, and So I'll lead into this and just say, so in the Christmas spirit,
Yes.
I was thinking about this today. In the Christmas spirit, if I had a wish list for this Titans team, not even this year, because this football isn't like Christmas. We're not getting anything in 2 days. I mean, it's not happening. But if
No.
I had a wish list for this team going forward, the one thing I can point to that this team is lacking is speed. You have got to go out this offseason and find speed. And you've got some guys that have it, but you've got to build on it. When you look at the best teams in the NFL right now, they're fast. They move. They make plays. They're efficient. And that's a stat I had. So plays ran per game this season in the NFL. Cleveland is first. They run 71.5 plays per game. Vegas is actually last, which kind of surprised me. They run 58.4 plays per game. Tennessee ranks 29th at 59.3 plays per game. That sounds bad, but I'm going to give you the team that they're tied with in the NFL. The San Francisco 49ers are tied for 29th in the NFL with the Titans, running 59.3 plays per game. The difference there is efficiency. It is offensive efficiency. You look at the 49ers and their record and what they've done this year. You look at the Tennessee Titans and where they're at and the woes that they've had this year. Both teams run the same amount of plays per game, but the 49ers are just that much more efficient. And it just feels like they have that speed, they have that go-get-it attitude, whereas the Titans just haven't had that this year. So in the spirit of Christmas, if I had a wish list, if I was asking Santa for something going forward into 2024, give me speed on this Tennessee Titans team.
I like that, man.
Yeah.
And I'll second that too, because we've got enough power, we've got enough tenacity, or whatever you want to call that, it factor. We have players with it. You know, Jeffrey Simmons is one of them. Will Levis is definitely one of them.
Yep.
Tajay Spears is one. I mean, we have plenty of players with it. We just need more, and like you said, speed.
Yep.
We need some quickness.
Yep.
All right, so let's get into it, man. Let's do it.
Whew.
What's your prediction?
This Titans team's weird. They're weird. They win games they shouldn't. They lose games they shouldn't. It seems like every week they're inventing a new way to lose football games. But you're at home. It's Christmas Eve. You lost on Christmas Eve last year to the Texans, I believe. Divisional matchup.
Right. Yeah.
I feel like they pull it out somehow. I don't even think they know whether we're going to see Geno or who's the other guy that played for him. I can't even think of it. Drew Lock.
Oh,
I'm not
sure. Drew Lock, yeah.
Not sure who they're going to roll out there at quarterback. Hell, I'm not even sure who the Titans are going to roll out there at quarterback. But it just feels like one of those games on Christmas Eve that might get a little weird. So I'm actually going to take the Titans on this one in an AFC versus NFC matchup. I'm going to go 21-17 Titans on this one.
All right. Well, can't say I agree.
I know. I'm not sure I agree, but we went with it.
You know, I think it'll be a close game, but I think it'll probably be more like 17-14 Seahawks.
Okay.
I hate to say that, guys. I'm not hoping we lose, or I'm not trying to get a better draft pick or any of that crap. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I don't really see it.
I get it. And hey, I'm not a homer. I'm not going to pick them to win every week. This season just feels so weird.
Oh, I mean,
you go out and beat Miami in Miami, then you come home and lose to a Texans team who's playing majority second strings. I don't
you know the people that set up the Vegas lines are just frustrated as hell with the Titans, man. I bet they are just pulling their hair out because we go into Miami and just dominate pretty much the game. Then we go into overtime with the Colts and lose.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. The best thing Tennessee has going for them is somebody saying they can't win a football game. because they just proved time and time again. I don't know what their record is against the spread this year. I don't know that I even want to look it up at this point. But whatever you think is going to happen, it's probably going to be the opposite. So I had to pick the Titans to win in this one.
That's pretty good logic. I'll have to give you that on that, man.
Yeah.
By the way, before we end the show, I did want to say, everybody, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I hope everybody is cool and good and happy. With that being said, I think we're done. Do you have anything else you want to talk about, Link?
No, I think we're good. Again, just to reiterate, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Always good to talk to you guys. We'll shout out where you can find us.
Yeah, man. As always, you can find the show on pretty much anything at Titans Global Podcast. You can get it TikTok, YouTube, where we want you to go. YouTube, like and subscribe. Twitter, basically anywhere there's social media. And if you want to follow me individually, it's Maximus Titan Fan on Facebook and Twitter.
Yep. And I am Link Rogers. You can find me on Twitter and Facebook with the same name. Always good to talk to you guys. Love to have the conversation. Love that y'all, get into it with us. And with that, Merry Christmas and tighten up.
Yeah. And I did want to say real quick, we will not be on Christmas Day.
Yes.
It's Monday, and that is our show day, but we will not be on that day, obviously, because it's Christmas. We'll be taking off. So we'll see you Tuesday at 9. And I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas. Tighten up.
Tighten
Peace
up.
out.